All right, coming to you live from Squaw Valley at the Open Source Leadership Summit. I got that right. With Chris Aniszczyk. Chris, how are you?
Doing pretty good.
So you're with the Linux Foundation, and in particular, you're leading the charge on OCI.
Correct.
What is OCI?
So OCI stands for the Open Container Initiative. So it's been about a year, a little over a year since it was founded. So if you remember about a year and a half ago, even a couple years ago, there was a whole notion of the container wars. And really, you know, it was kind of a funny way of saying that, you know, there's multiple ways to build containers, potentially, you know, run them and so on. And so at that time, people were like, it would be really, you know, so what I'm looking for. So end users and developers don't want to actually be put in a system where they have to like build a container for one platform and rebuild it and, you know, massage it to some means to get it to run on another one, right? So the whole idea is like, let's stop fighting on, you know, different container formats and runtimes, and let's try to standardize on a simple set of basics that could at least guarantee that my application will be portable if I package it in a container. And so that's kind of the genesis of OCI, was to help alleviate a lot of those issues in terms of making sure that containers are truly portable.
Cool. And you've got sort of, I would guess, three, maybe there's more. Yep. You've got a technical spec you're doing, you're looking at certification, and you're looking at trademark. I think those are, what are...
Yeah, so OCI, technical, in terms of technical scope, it's actually very limited to the container runtime. So this is like what, you know, how your container runs, like a start, stop, pause, like the execution bits, the image format, so the actual like bundle layout of how a container is packaged, and that's basically it. You know, that's basically the scope of the project. And there's two specifications associated with that within OCI. The other bit is, you know, it's great if you kind of develop a standard and a spec, and people may have multiple implementations, but to actually guarantee portability, you most likely want to have a certification process. So in OCI, we have a certification program that we're developing that will basically guarantee that, you know, if a product supports OCI, they'll be stamped like OCI certified solution or whatever the final terminology is, and then you could guarantee that if you build a container that's OCI compliant, you'll be able to run it on anything that says OCI, you know, certified essentially. And the hunch is that most customers and end users and developers will, you know, demand this because it's in their best interest. They want portability essentially, so you want to take your app anywhere.
Cool. And so people may have heard of Runseed. What is Runseed, and how does that fit in?
Yeah, so Runseed is an implementation of the runtime spec. So when OCI first started, Docker seeded the Open Container Initiative with a project called libcontainer, which was essentially their runtime engine for you know, how to actually run the container. It was renamed to Runseed just due to trademark concerns and other wonderful things that you have in open source land. And now to this day, Runseed is the default implementation of the runtime spec. We expect there to be other implementations out there, and people are kind of playing around with it. There's a RunV implementation out there that's kind of playing containers on lightweight type of hypervisors, and there's other folks kind of doing experimental implementations.
Cool. And then just to end with, next year coming up, what do you see for OCI?
So my goal is we're going to hit 1.0 pretty soon, probably in the next couple months, 2-3 months. The developer community is getting to a point where they're pretty happy with things, so they're just doing very small release candidate releases. Afterwards, we'll launch a certification program, and so you'll see a lot more products. At the end of this year, you'll see a ton of products, you know, basically in the container space saying they support OCI in some fashion, whether it's runtime or image based. And then after that, I expect the OCI community to kind of get together and decide, all right, so now that we've standardized on kind of the image format and you know, the actual runtime bits, what's next? There's been discussions around distribution, so having a way to have a standard way to kind of fetch and distribute containers, I think, is the next logical step for OCI. So I expect that discussion to happen, and maybe in the future you'll see something like a distribution specification in OCI. But who knows? It's up for the development community to decide.
Awesome. Chris Aniszczyk, thank you so much.
Cool, thanks.